Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making a formula from a patent from 50 years ago. This is a Firmenich patent. It's for, quote, a base perfume composition for a fine perfume. And I have no idea what we're going to get. Taking a look at the ingredients in the patent, this looks like an old formula. There's a lot of naturals. There's a lot of aldehydes. There's civet. We've got artemisia. And it's simple. It's short. It's simple. And my hope is that by mixing this, we'll get a little view into what fragrances were like 50 years ago. If you were to smell a fragrance that was around 50 years ago and you were to smell it today, first, it would not smell how it did right out of the bottle fresh 50 years ago because it's a 50-year-old fragrance. Second, if you were to smell it brand new, if we were to make a brand new fragrance using a 1970s formula, you might be a little disappointed because tastes change, and some of those 60s, 70s fragrances, you really have to have a taste for what was in style back then. The same way you might look at clothes from the early 90s and go, yeah, I don't know. You might feel that way if you smell fragrances from the 60s and 70s. But let's take a look at the patent first. Then we'll take a look in formulaire at the formula. And I want to look at this patent for a couple of reasons. First, patents are a place to find formulas. You can go into Google Patents. You can, let's do this. Let's go patents.google.com. In here, just search Givaudan, Assigny Givaudan, and then search. Here we have sweetened consumables comprising macroside V and, okay, I don't know, fragrance compounds, you can click in each of these. Let's do this one. Let's go fine fragrance. So we'll have fine fragrance, Assigny Givaudan. And let's look at this. Perfume compositions. Let's click on this. All right, this was in 2000. We're looking at a US patent. This is helpful. You can click the different countries over here with whom this patent was submitted. And if we scroll down, usually these are further down in the patent. It looks like in here, what we have are examples 1 through 6, relaxing perfume compositions incorporating a class and R materials. Those are patent materials, I'm guessing. In here, it's giving us the ingredient, and in the iteration of the fragrance, it's giving us the, I'm guessing, parts by weight. Methylenone alpha. Okay, great, interesting. So here are a bunch of formulas for a perfume oil. Now, whether or not that is for a fine fragrance, i.e. a perfume, a cologne, eau de toilette, I don't know. This could be for a Glade plug-in or some kind of room freshener or reed diffuser. You don't know. You don't always know. But you certainly, there are people with strong opinions about patents and patent formulas. I think it's a good resource. Take it with a grain of salt. Every formula you come across, treat it as a study formula, something you just put together. You try to analyze what's going where, what are you smelling, how does this interact with this? Whether or not it is a good example of a properly balanced fragrance, whether or not it is actually the formula for one of your favorite fragrances, it's a complete crapshoot. I don't know. I can't tell you. But I have found value in putting together patent formulas. That said, I have definitely put together some functional fragrances, and you know it immediately. You know it immediately. In any case, let's take a look at this. Now, we know that this is for a fine perfume. Sometimes it'll say it's for a fine fragrance or a men's eau de toilette, a women's eau de toilette. Sometimes it'll be clear there. But here we have Jasmine Absolute. Wonderful. This is, if we were to take this up to 1,000 parts, that would be 1% jasmine. I'm not sure you see that a whole lot anymore. Patchouli, we still see patchouli. Pimento oil. Now, I don't have pimento oil from the leaves. This is otherwise known as allspice. I do have pimento berry, so I'm going to use pimento berry. Here's an interesting one that gave me pause. Hydroxycitronellol with an OL. This I just dipped because I needed to remind my nose what it smells like. And I realized I can barely smell this. I mean, barely smell this. It might be a touch rosy, very light, and it's transparent, but at the same time, it's got a heaviness. It's a weird molecule to my nose. I'm just getting used to it because I only got it a couple months ago. But this gave me pause because there are often typos and misspellings in patents. It's entirely possible that this is supposed to be hydroxycitronellal with an AL at the end, not with an OL. Now, I just happen to have hydroxycitronellol, so I'm going to use that. But, you know, take note. Next up, synthetic rose. Okay, great. But is this Rose Damascena? Is it Rosa Damascena? Is it Rosa centifolia or Rose de Mai? I'm not sure. Is it Rose Absolute or Rose Auto? I don't know. So we're going to kind of wing it. Alpha isomethyl-ionone. This is otherwise known as methyl-ionone gamma. Next up, synthetic jasmine. I'm going to assume Jasmine grandiflorum and not Jasmine sambac. So, you know, we're going to go with that. Then we've got some vetiveryl acetate. Wonderful. We've got 4 different aldehydes at various amounts, which is great. Oriental sandalwood. Now this is just saying this is sandalwood from the old Orient. In other words, we're talking India. We're probably talking India here. In other words, Mysore sandalwood, not Australian sandalwood, not Hawaiian sandalwood, Mysore or Indian sandalwood. Methyl 2-pentyl 3-oxocyclopentyl acetate is a long way of saying hedione. Methyl dihydrojasminate, and just a little bit amount. And here we can confirm, I believe hedione was discovered or used in the 60s. So seeing this in a patent in the 70s it's okay. Occasionally, I don't think I've ever ran into this, but if you happen to see, say, Veramos, and it's from a patent in 1960, I don't think methyl atrorate was discovered or synthesized until later, you know, so you should see oak moss. But I've yet to run into that. Next up, synthetic bergamot. Great. Ylang Extra. Natural degreased civet. Whew, looking forward to using that. I do have a civet tincture we'll use. Artemisia oil. Neroli bigarade, which I grabbed my Moroccan neroli. I should see if I have neroli bigarade. Synthetic violet. This is not, say, ionone alpha or methyl-ionone, one of the violet notes. And I know that because methyl-ionone is up here. Furthermore, if we go to the previous formula in this, we have alpha-ionone. So when they're talking about synthetic violet, I don't think they're talking about ionones. So, are they talking about violet leaf? Or are they talking about that violet note that you get from, say, orris butter? I don't know. I really don't know. And maybe we'll leave this for last. Maybe we'll leave that note for last. I have my I have Iraval Olefac, an orris butter reconstitution from IFF. I have that, but maybe they're talking about violet leaf. Maybe that's what they're talking about, synthetic violet leaf. Let me grab that really quickly. Yeah, I'll grab the violet leaf absolute. Maybe this is just a little green note that they want to put in here. I don't know. Okay, cyclopentadecanolyde, otherwise known as exaltalide or pentolide. Then we have coumarin, heliotropin, going up to 920. And then, of course, they say add 8 grams of 2,6,6-trimethylbutents, whatever, and you can obtain a new perfume composition. So they intend to say, here is the reference. This formula is our reference, and in this patent, they're going to add some new molecule, test it with perfumers, and they give a before and after. What does the new fragrance smell like? So we're going to ignore the 2,6,6-trimethylbutanonyl, whatever that is. I think it's like a Damascenone-like molecule, I believe. Kind of spitballing there, but we're not going to go there. Let's look at the structure of this formula. It's so short. It's short and it's wonderful. The structure of the formula. We have a lot of middle notes, a fair few bottom and base notes, but there is a lot in the middle. And most of it is this floral accord: rose, jasmine, methylenone, or alpha isomethylionone. That is a heavy part of the formula. And then of course we have a little bit of hedione, just a little bit of hedione, not much. There's no isoe super. You know, we got a little sandalwood, but the floral core is going to be the meat and potatoes of this fragrance. So why don't we start there? We're going to start with our Rose Jivko. This is what I'm using as the Rose synthetic. Now, Rose Jivko is a Turkish Rose Auto reconstitution. It's great. I will say the opening of Rose Jivko does not smell like the opening of True Rose Auto. However, about 12 to 24 hours, that's a wide breadth, I know, but when I last tested this, I cut off at 9 hours and then I didn't smell it again until I hit the 24-hour mark. When I was comparing Rose Jivko with True Rose Autos, I noticed that within the first hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, even 8 hours, it was a little different. It was smoother. It smells like real rose. You could say that. It smells like real rose. Where when you smell fresh Rose Auto, it does not smell like real rose. It is strong and it is almost offensive. But one day later, Rose Jivko matches very nicely with the dry down, if you want to say, for Turkish Rose. So take it for what it's worth. Next up, let's do... I'm going to hold off on the neroli. We're going to add that with our bergamot. Just given the linalool, the top notes that are involved in neroli, let's leave it. But let's continue with our methylenone gamma. The batch that I'm making today is about 9 grams. And it will finish at 14.5% concentrate. So the methylenone gamma, some jasmine, some Rose Jivko that I'm using those at 100%. Now there are equal parts rose and methylenone gamma. Okay. Wonderful. Now for every 2 parts rose and 2 parts methylenone, there are 3 parts synthetic jasmine. I'm using Firmenich's Jasmine Specialty. I believe this Jasmine Specialty is a reconstitution of just Jasmine grandiflorum. I'm not sure if there's a specific country in mind for that Jasmine grandiflorum, but it's a very reasonable, very realistic jasmine replacer. And while we're at it, we're going to throw in some true Egyptian Jasmine Absolute. And yeah, this smells a bit more indolic than Jasmine Specialty, a bit more hearty. A bit more hearty. There's only a couple drops of the real stuff in here. Okay, now if I dip this, I think I would be in trouble because because it's a pure concentrate right now. So I'm not sure I should do that. What can we do? What can we do? I know one thing. We can add our hydroxycitronellol. There's a fair bit of this, at least at a 10% dilution. We got a whole gram of this. So that'll help blend this up a little bit at least. Now again, I have a hard time smelling this. Perhaps in the same way that I have a hard time smelling hydroxycitronellol. I know it's there, I can smell it, but there's this transparent quality to it. It's lily of the valley like. It's bright, it's fresh, it's green. Hydroxycitronellol. Hydroxycitronellol has that same, again, that same kind of transparency, same kind of freshness, but it's more on the rose side. It doesn't really have the brightness of that hydroxycitronellol has. So let's give this a shake. Okay. And let's give this a dip. Just a little one's all we need. And here we're going to write floral core. Great. I'm going to put it up here. And let's keep trucking. Okay. Let's continue with our floral notes. And you know what? I think I'm just struggling with this neroli. Where do I put it? I think I'll add it back in with these florals. So with these florals, we're going to start with some ylang. Ylang extra. Now, interesting that the formula calls for ylang extra. Ylang extra is the higher quality of ylang. My pipette's all squished. Because with ylang ylang, you've got the ylang extra. Then you've got ylang 1. That's the next best grade. Then ylang 2, ylang 3. I haven't figured out where ylang complete is. I hope someone can inform me. But having a high quality ylang ylang is important when ylang, so I've read. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy on the internet. Ylang extra is important when ylang is the focus of your fragrance. But if ylang is just a color, just a little added support, you could probably get away with one of the slightly lower qualities of ylang. It's not like you're going basement quality ylang ylang. Next up, let's do the heliotropin. Equal parts ylang, equal with heliotropin. For each of these, I got about 4 drops, but we'll stop at 3. Ooh, that one's going to be 3. This one's a little bit heavier per drop. But I love heliotropin. It's much more powdery, much more powdery. And let's do our neroli. Now, I love neroli because it's halfway between Orange Flower Absolute and Petitgrain. Petitgrain has this woodiness. Orange Flower Absolute has a really narcotic quality. Petitgrain has plenty of linaloyl acetate and linalool. Neroli is the bridge between those two materials. You get a little woodiness, you get some of that citrus, you get some of the floralness or florality, as I like to say. But with a good neroli, or at least with the nerolis I enjoy, you also get some of the indole and some of that rich, off floral quality. I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was it. Okay, let's shake. Okay, put my hand on that strip. When I dip, you dip, we dip. So here we have more florals. More florals. Great. Next, let's add, before we get too far into the bottom, let's add some of the more filling and spicy notes. We're going to start with the armoise. Now, I did a short on armoise not too long ago, and I've been comparing this with other thujone containing materials like mugwort, cedar leaf, a little bit of sage, and this is fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic stuff. There's not much in here. For every 2 parts of rose, 2 parts of methyl-ionone, there is 0.2 parts of armoise. Sometimes my thumb does this thing where it spasms, and then I get too many drops. Don't want to do that, because the thujone in here, the woodiness, the fullness of armoise or artemisia, it has a pronounced effect on formulas. And armoise was such a powerful and such a thematic ingredient in the 80s. Next up, allspice or pimento berry. Now, alas, I don't have pimento leaves. Now, allspice, if you don't have allspice, you could probably get away with clove, maybe clove leaf. This does contain eugenol, some isoeugenol, it smells like. So, if you are going to use eugenol, just only eugenol, maybe cut it in half. Use half the amount. Perfect. Twice as much allspice as there is armoise. We need to shake. We need to sing the song. I put my hand up on that strip. And I dip, you dip, we dip. You put your hand up on that strip. And I dip, you dip, we dip. Here we go. Okay, so here we got the armoise and allspice. Let's put it up here. Okay, so let's add the base note. You know what? I'm going to add the violet leaf. I'm going to guess that we are adding violet leaf absolute, not the synthetic violet is not saying, hey, add orris root and butter. I'm guessing. And I'm guessing that because we are already adding methyl-ionone gamma in a fair bit of it. And this is such a simple, straightforward formula. Why would we add another synthetic violet note? So I'm going to go out on a limb. And I'm going to say we're adding violet leaf absolute. So let's add it. It's a wonderful green color. I probably just need a drop, 2 drops. Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to re-dip. I'm going to re-dip strip number 3 so that we get the violet leaf absolute on it. Okay. Armoise, allspice, violet. Great. Now we can move forward, and I'm getting whiffs already. This does smell a little dated. Already smells a little dated. It smells great, but a little dated. Let's move to our base notes, because then we're going to add our top notes and the aldehydes, and then we're going to finish it off with the musks, the little bit of civet and the cyclopentadecanolyde, or the exaltalide. Let's start with our coumarin, the classic hay note, one of the key ingredients to a fougere accord. Pairs very well with lavender, with oak moss. It's also a nice wingman to vanillin. Okay. Next, let's do our sandalwood. I am using Mysore sandalwood. Lovely stuff. If you don't have sandalwood, try using sandalwood Jivco, Mysore base, one of the replacements, or you can use Dreamwood, a lovely, lovely material, a sandalwood base that I believe has a large amount of santalol in it. That would definitely be a more elegant replacement. Dreamwood smells amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, we've got 2 more here. Patchouli. I'm using dark patchouli. No rhyme or reason. Interested to smell what effect these base notes have on the florals above it. Last, vetiveryl acetate. There's a fair bit of vetiveryl acetate here. Interesting choice, because you get the vetiver note, but I don't know if the acetate portion gives it a bit more strength, a bit more pop. But here we have over 1 gram, at least at a 10% dilution. Almost. Yeah, close enough. Beautiful. All right, group, class, team. Just got 2 more we're going to do. Yeah, why not do 2 more? Okay, so we'll do base. You know, well, I'm going to split up. We're going to do 3 more. We're going to start with the aldehydes. Let's do our aldehydes. And then we will do our hedione and bergamot, and then we will do the other stuff. Let's start with our aldehyde C9, nonanal. This might be the only, no, never mind. I was going to, hold on. One of these only lasts, oh, I'm thinking of octanal. Nonanal, it's kind of a base note. It has top note effects, but this stuff lasts for a long time. Lasts almost 300 hours. Noticed a lot of the aldehydes last a fair bit for a fair length of time. Okay. C9. Moving on to C10, decanal. If you've watched previous videos, please excuse the typo that was in decanal on previous videos. It has since been fixed. Most of these smell almost the same to me. There are differences. Absolutely, there are subtle differences, especially when you get to the MNA, aldehyde C12 MNA versus the aldehyde C12, the lauric. But they all have such a similar vibe to me, just that waxy, bright hiss. They're all very, very similar. Okay, there's a lot of aldehyde C11. And if I remember correctly, this is one of the most commonly used aldehydes. And they recommend to use this in trace amounts. So I don't know, let's see, is 1.22% a trace amount of an aldehyde? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is meant to be an aldehydic fine perfume base. Because this is a lot of aldehyde C11 or undecanal. Okay, last up, aldehyde C12 or dodecanal. Okay. All right. Aldehydes added. Let's do our shake. Definitely getting wafts. Wafts from the bottle here. Okay, we'll dip. Let's add the note aldehyde, ald. Great. Drop it off We got 2 more. Let's add the bergamot and the hedione. Fair bit of bergamot, and this bottle is going to get full pretty fast. So bergamot, here we go. Adding some definite brightness. Beautiful top note. Bergamot is truly an amazing ingredient. Of course, this is bergamot Jivco, synthetic bergamot. Helps provide consistency across batches. Now last, hedione. About 1.5% of this formula, of the concentrate, is in hedione. This is at a 50% dilution, so just a few drops will do it. Okay. This is exciting. We're almost done. We're almost done. Then we're going to get a little smell of the 70s. 50 years ago. Okay. Okay, we'll add. I'll bet you I'm just going to be able to smell the hedione. It always happens whenever I add hedione. I need to give it time to settle down. Next up, let's do our exaltalide. Now I'm using, I should say, our cyclopentadecanolyde. There's multiple brand names for this. I happen to be using pentalide here because I have some and I want to use it. I want to try to clear out my supply and just go with one cyclopentadecanolyde, which it'll be exaltalide. But I'll use pentalide right now until I get through it. And then next up and last, civet. This is a civet tincture. It smells like crap. Literally. Absolutely like crap. Oddly enough though, in small amounts and fragrances, it really helps warm up a blend, give it some body, and really give it some beauty. Civet is done. Okay, shake it. Let's dip. And let's do our final evaluation. All right, we started with our floral core. This was just the methyl-ionone gamma, the rose, and the jasmine. And we added the hydroxycitronellol. This is a beautiful, beautiful accord. So remember, 2 parts rose, 2 parts jasmine, 3 parts. Nope, 2 parts rose, 2 parts methyl-ionone, 3 parts jasmine, and we have a beautiful accord. 2, 2, 3. That's wonderfully balanced, beautifully, beautifully balanced. Not one flower is like, you know, karate chopping the other one. They're playing well, they're playing nicely together. So next up we added more florals. Heliotropin, maybe for some powderiness, some cherry. Then we added neroli, we slipped that in, and then we also added ylang. So I'm wondering what that little narcotic edge does to our floral blend. Interesting. This adds a little nuance and character to what we just smelled. This is nice. This is nice. This is like call it like a cheap soap. Not a bad smelling soap, but it's an inexpensive but high quality soap. Here is like a luxury soap. It's not very different. But the ylang adds some body, a little bit of darkness, and the heliotropin adds a powdery edge to it. I'm not quite sure I can pick up the neroli. I could make up things like it adds brightness, but honestly, I can't tell the difference. I'd need to do a separate dip for that one. So next up, we added the Armoise, the allspice, and then we added in the violet leaf absolute. Now it asked for synthetic violet. I don't have synthetic violet leaf. I just have violet leaf absolute, so we had to use it. Let's see. Okay, immediately, the Armoise is that thujone, that woody thujone effect is dominating. It's front and center. I know that's going to disappear in 10 minutes. But it's dominating. The allspice is adding a little bit of warmth with the eugenol, but again, that the thujone is being dominated, is dominating this blend. And the violet leaf absolute, I'm looking for it. If it's there, it's barely noticeable. Now, I shouldn't be smelling so much. I don't want my nose to go blind to the methyl ionum gamma. Huh. Okay, here we added the base notes. This was the coumarin, the vetiveryl acetate, the patchouli, and we had one more, the sandalwood. So let's see what kind of foundation we're laying here. Okay, the vetiveryl acetate. The vetiveryl acetate is there. What's very nice is the patchouli is there with this herbal, woody fullness that is help giving it an earthiness and this roundness. But the vetiveryl acetate, quite frankly, is staking its claim right in the center and saying, everyone come here, work around me. Smells good. Still smells good, but interesting. Next up, we added the aldehydes. Let's see what happens. Aldehydic. Aldehydes dominating on top. You can see, it's like putting a cloud on top of the stuff that you're smelling. And you know that there's flowers underneath. You know that there's vetiver underneath. But it's hard to get through that cloud. That's what's happening. That cloud is that aldehydic cloud. If you know that dry waxiness that you get from like orange peel, from citrus peel, citrus rind, that's what I'm getting on top. It helps to add a powderiness, certainly helps to add a powderiness, but it's interesting that that's covering things up right now. I wonder what that'll be like, how that will change as this matures over the next couple weeks. Next up, we added the hedione and the bergamot. Interesting. I'm glad I can't just smell the hedione. I'm still getting the aldehydes. The bergamot, we added quite a bit of bergamot. It's 8% of the concentrate, bergamot. And it's helping to brighten up. It's as if the sun is shining on the cloud that we put over our flowers in vetiver and sandalwood and patchouli. Now the sun is shining on the cloud. It's bright. You're still getting the florals underneath. And it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. Now, last but not least, we added the civet and the exaltalide. And I'm hoping this just helps warm it up. We'll see. Wow, yeah. It's so subtle. Oh, wow. It's so subtle, but it's beautiful. I'm just going to enjoy this for a second. Saturating my nose, which is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. This is a very nice blend. Definitely dated. Definitely dated. The strength of the florals, the clarity and firmness of the rose, jasmine, violet accord, that's old school, baby. Where these days you have hedione, the lily of the valley is your floral accord, which is light, it's effervescent, it's, it's lifting, transparent. Not in the olden days, 50 years ago, it's not even that long ago, but yeah, strong core. I really like how this evolves, especially, yeah, the Armoise. As I come back to this, I can't really smell it. The herbal nature of the Armoise is starting to come through as the thujone dies down. I am excited to see how this matures. Per usual, I'll add this to the list of batches that we need to review and get an update on after it matures. But I'd say this is a good study formula. Very simple, not many lines, kind of clearly demarcated fragrance families, you know. It's almost like a Jean-Claude Ellena formula where it's just very simple. Each material has its purpose in the formula. I think it's a great study formula. I'll put a link to the patent and yeah, give this a try. Give this a try. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.